Hello everyone, today I'm working on this consolidation. It's HO scale and I'm not even sure I can get this running. Honestly, I thought when I bought it that this was a brass engine. It is not, it is cast iron, probably Bowser, but it looks to be good quality, so I'm gonna try and get this running again. It looks pretty nice. Can't complain about that because of the belt pair firebox. I think it's exactly a Bowser, a Pennsylvania prototype. So I really don't like this paint job. I'm gonna want to repaint it. So the engine looks like your pretty average Bowser stuff. The tender though is really weird. It's got a plastic shell, lots of weight in it, and it's got a brass bar as the tender floor, and it's pretty heavy. And it's got a pickup chute just like in the 50s. When it's riding on the track, you don't see it too much. But I think the tender is going to be fine. I think I'm going to be able to fix that, even use it for some other engines. Back in the day, the tender used to pick up one side of the track, and the engine used to pick up the other side of the track. And they work like that. They work okay. I'm gonna see if I can get this this boiler off of there. So this one, it doesn't run simply because the motor is out of its mount and it's not contacting the drivers at all. So that's going to be my first thing to fix. Okay, let's try to take this boiler out. So there's a tab here. That's pretty obvious. That's easy. I think there's going to be a screw in here. Let me just remove this pilot truck. This pilot truck, as you can see, it's got a wheel from, looks like a freight car maybe, or a tender, but it seems to be metal, so I'm definitely going to be using that. That is okay. I'll probably just take the ends of the axles off to make it flat, like on the real engine. And then I have to get this screw out. Perfect. And then let's see if we can get this boiler out. It's got a lot of weight. And it's got a, look at that, it's got a resistor there. Maybe it's converted to LEDs already. So we'll take a look at that. Oh, it's a CAN motor. So this should be sweet. I am going to put some power to that. Let's just see how that goes. Also, when I turn my wheels in my hands, it binds somewhere. So that can't be good. I have to look into that. I'm not going to run it like that. Alright, let's put some power on the motor. This is the lowest setting on my power pack. And it's running very quiet. That looks like a really good quality motor. That's something I always wanted to do, is repower brass engines. So I do think this one's a Bowser, but I cannot read any markings anywhere. Seems to be a good quality engine. I paid a ton of money for this. So it's good that it's gonna, actually it's a ton of money for a non-running engine. But I think in the end it's gonna turn out great. I'm gonna repaint this for Pennsylvania probably, but I like this detail, all the metal handrails. Metal is nice. Everything's solid, you know. You can put your fingers on it, you're not afraid to break it. I don't think you could drop this off the floor, but still. So the tender, you can see it's a plastic shell made by River Rossi. But that's gonna work for me, that's fine. It's gonna get repainted and it's gonna be nice. Alright, so now I'm gonna take the motor completely off. while I work on whatever's binding in there. That, I'd have to say, is probably my big problem for now. But this motor is nice, I like it. I don't know what the other guy that worked on this before, I don't know what his plan was. There seems to be a screw in there. Oh no, it was glued in. Can you see the glue residue on there? So it was glued in. There's provisions for screws on the motor. Maybe I'll see if I can make it work that way. So that's kind of neat. You have the drawbar, a screw for the drawbar here in the back. That's okay. Am I able to remove the crosshead and the valve cylinder? Maybe, maybe not. This is not going to be too hard to work on. These are all little bolts that you can take out. So I'll take them out carefully, and I can get my main rods and my part of my cylinders out. Okay, so these are just pressed in so you can pry them out. That's pretty easy. Then I can remove this. I'll do the same for the other side. Now these, I don't oil them. I don't oil them, so I will clean them though, but I won't oil them. And let's see if it still binds. Yep, it sure still does. So maybe there's something dirty in the gear, in this gearbox. So I'll take these screws out. That should release all my gearbox. The middle screw here released this part of the gearbox with that little gear. That little gear rolls very well. I don't think that's causing any problems. So let's just take a look at what's under this plate. That should tell me a lot of why it's interfering. Of course, now it's rolling freely. That gives you a lot of access to take a look at what could be a problem. For sure, all these wheels, they have to be taken out and cleaned. See, isn't that strange? Now it rolls very freely. So, probably wasn't a huge problem. Something, you know, just not quite in its spot. What I do when that happens, I will add one component at a time and then check it along every step of the way. When it starts biting again, I know that that's the part that's being a troublemaker. Now this engine, as you can see, it's got brass wheels. The nickel silver wheels are better because the oxide of nickel silver conducts electricity, whereas when brass gets oxidated, it will not conduct electricity and your engine stops. So that's not good. So what I'm going to do is take everything apart and then clean the wheels carefully. Also, very important to take note on these drivers. You can see part of it is metal on this side and this side is plastic. You can see this is plastic and this is metal. So it does matter which side you put them on. So if you put them on this side, no problem, the engine picks up electricity. You put them like that, short circuit, and you're buggered. So as you put everything back together, make sure to keep track of which side is metal and which side is plastic. And then the quartering is good. I did not think that that was a problem, so that's good. Also important to take note, you can see all the counterweights are about the same except for this one, which is the main driver, which is the one that has the connecting rods attached to it. So You always want to put that one number 3 driver. I'm just fooling around on my table, but this is going to be a good runner. I have a good feeling about this. Also, I take a minute to check the little light bulb, and it is working, so I won't have to rebuild that. Also, I'm going to get this ready for painting. I'm going just to wash it with my toothbrush and some dish soap. Same with this here. I'm going to repaint this. They put quite a bit of weight in there. So I found out the manufacturer of this. It's a MDC Roundhouse. So kind of a mid-range item, but just wait and see. I'm gonna make it run right. And it comes from the kit with the pointed axles like that, but I don't like that. I'm gonna shave them down using my Dremel. So that too, I'll work on that a little bit later. But first I'm gonna get my stuff ready for painting. When I paint, I always start with small droplets. And then as I keep going, the droplets will touch each other. And then when it turns shiny, I just quit. I started to clean my drivers, you can see. It's a big difference. So I just use a little bit of steel wool. That's also going to help for power pickup. So I cleaned also my side rods. Cleaned them all up. They look much better now. And then I put my wheels back in the frame, and everything rolls really well. So for sure that's not the problem. I took this little gearbox. It needed an extra shim. So with the extra shim, if I put the screw in there, everything still rolls very well. This little axle here, it keeps moving. So I'm going to have to put just a little bit of crazy glue, or cyanoacrylate as some like to call it, just to keep it from moving around. So I'm going to screw that right back in, exactly where it should go. So I'll make sure that I put it on straight. Very important. It's got to be on perfectly straight. And then, as you can see, everything rolls freely still. Oh, it's off a little bit. I might have to just sandpaper my shim a little bit down so that it grabs all the time. That's easy enough to do. That is not a problem. So I took my time and I sanded it down until I was 100% happy. Now that seems fine. Everything's rolling as it should. So that's really good news. Now I can add the motor and see where I'm at. So this is the theory of what happened. There was a little bit of binding between these the gear on the wheel and this gear, and that caused the motor just to lift up enough to break the glue bond that was here. So I'm going to glue this back, and then we'll see how it runs. I'm going to be using cyanoacrylate, and also I'll strengthen it with some baking soda. You guys have seen this trick before a million times, baking soda and crazy glue. Anyways, that's what I'm going to use to install this. We'll see how it goes. I filed the surface a little bit to give my glue something to grab onto, and the motor also needed a little shim, so that's going to work out great. So all I did since you last watched my video, I put the gearbox on top here, and the motor's on there very solid, and I hooked up the tender, and I cleaned the wheels from the tender. That's about all I did. Now I'm just gonna hook up some power to it, and we should see things move. Here we go. So running on the bench like that, it's pretty easy because there's no load on the motor. I'm gonna try and run it the other direction for you. And this is the forward direction. So it's super nice, super quiet, but the real test is gonna be on the track. And I can't put it on the track right now because only one wheel will be turning, so that means there's way too much, not enough friction between the engine and the rails. So I have to put my connecting rods. In this engine, the connecting rods do exactly the same thing as they do on the real engine. Now because these are brass colored, I'm gonna paint them. I have the option I could paint them silver. When they came from the factory, they would be shiny polished steel, which looks like silver or chrome. But after a couple of weeks of running the engine, they would turn black because of all the grease and the oil and the grime. Incidentally, you can see there's a little dimple. This goes on the top of the connecting rod, and that was for a place to hold oil. So as the engine goes down the track, there would be a little receptacle here that would put oil on the journals. So that goes on top, just so you know it's not a mistake. You don't have to file these down. These are supposed to be there and they go on top. So I am gonna paint them black. I think I'm gonna paint everything black, and that's gonna be cool. So while my main rods are drying, I'm gonna use the time to work on my shell. So this is the way the shell came out. So this was just one coat, very thin. So that's very shiny. You can use your engine like that, you know, freshly shopped. And then the same with the tender. Came out good actually. So I'm going to put some decals on that. I use a micro scale. This is the set that I found. I found this set. It's a diesel and electric set, but it's going to work for me today. The decals were a little bit too long, so I shortened them. So I'm going to put this thing on right now. More and more, I'll put the decals on the model, and then I'll slide them in with I'll slide them in place with my toothpick. I think that works best. Then I put just a little bit of microsol to help it set properly. Got the decals on my tender. Still very shiny. I'm gonna put some dull coat on this. And now I'm gonna put on my connecting rods. I have to put my connecting rods on the number 1 driver, but because I can't get to it, I'm just gonna remove all the drivers. It's This engine is well designed for that. You know, you can get in there really easily. I had these very tight because I wanted to make sure they weren't interfering with the drive system. My worm gear is a little bit crooked, you know, compared to the rest of the frame. So I had to grind the boiler down just a little bit to allow space. On a plastic shell, it takes no time at all, but because the because the boiler is metal, it actually took me about 20 minutes to get that done. But it's gonna go good. It was rubbing against the side a little bit. Maybe that was the problem, why this engine wasn't running when I got it. Along with the motor not being lined up perfectly. So probably that caused the motor to come out, it being rubbing against the boiler. At any rate, I looked at a lot of these kits, the Roundhouse kits. I looked at a lot of them on eBay yesterday. The kits are about the same price as what I paid for this engine. And you know, the fact that it had been built before actually saved me a bunch of time, to be honest. And that every little bit helps. Dropped my screw. So now I can get to this number 1 driver. Also, be very attentive. There's a metal side and there's a plastic side. So be very attentive that you have all the plastic side where they should go. So I'm using the connecting rod as a tool, just like I do in N scale, to hold the pin for me. So that's pretty sweet. And then I'll line them all up like that. And I'm not doing the main driver. You will see that later on. I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna have it later, because I'm gonna put the connecting rods together. Now's a good time to maybe add a little lubrication. You don't need a lot. I'm gonna paint this in a little bit. That's all you need, is a little drop, and that will be good. You could use green grease on the worm gear. That's awesome. I like to use this very light oil, which is very low viscosity. Doesn't slow down your engine at all. I prefer, if you ask me what I like, I think I prefer to have the Phillips head screws. But this is good. It's a throwback to the old days. You know, maybe this, all these castings and molds, probably they're from the 50s. I mean, that it's a kind of quality in a way. It's very old school. And this engine, when I started, I wasn't too sure what was going to happen, but really it's really easy to work on. With the simplified valve gear also, that makes it way easier. This is really good for me to do, get used to doing that type of 1950s style. So I'm gonna test it on the bench again just to make sure, and then we'll go on the track. So when I do that, I listen to make sure nothing's binding are getting in the way. So that's going backwards. It sounds pretty good. So that sounds pretty good. Let's go try it on the track. That's the real test. So here comes the moment of truth. So it's gonna be a good runner. I can tell. All right. I put the tender shell on because it would keep derailing. The tender shell has a lot of weight to it. But that is going to be a good runner. Look at that. Nice and slow. So that's what I do to troubleshoot. I'll just keep adding one part at a time until I get problems, and then I problem solve that. But so far, so good. At this point, I'm going to remove the wheels again, and I'm going to paint all this frame here, and here I'm going to paint this all black. It's coming along great. So I got everything painted black. I'm going to bring in the main rod and the piston wrist pin and the cross head. These are identical on both sides, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. So I will bring them in, and then I will test everything again to make sure that everything is running. These should not be hard to put in. There we go. And then I'll just put the pin right back in. Then I'll do the other side. So I'll just put some power to it. So that seems real good on the bench. I'm going to take it up to the track, and we'll see how that goes. I also put the pilot truck back on to try it out, but it's running very well. Nice and quiet. So basically all I got left to do on this is to paint the shell, the boiler and the tender with some dull coat, and we're just about done. The dull coat dries very quickly. I found the plans to this online, and one of the guys said something that made me happy. He said, in one of the blogs, he said, if you're having fun, then you're doing it right. And that, I'm pretty sure that's going to become my motto from now on for model railroading. Also, I looked at my stats there in the Creator Studio. You can see that dull coat blends everything together. Oh, also, you know what? I bought a brand new paint pen, so I can paint my bell there. I think I'm gonna paint the whistle also. Let's have some fun with that. So anyway, the guy said, you know, on the blog, he said, if you're having fun, then you're doing it right. So I got my Sharpie paint pen. Let's just see how that's gonna look. Let's have a look at that. Oh my God, it's wonderful. So yeah, if you're having fun, then you're doing it right. That makes a lot of sense. So I looked at my stats. A lot of you are not staying till the end, which it's okay. That's a nice thing about YouTube. If you're not, you don't have to stay till the end. But this is my reward for you guys that did. Just to know that that's what model railroading is all about, is having fun. So if you are having fun, then you are doing it right. Just a little bit of gold paint. That's gonna look awesome. All that's left to do now is to stick my boiler in here and to put the screw on. Well, that's really shaping up. The only thing that's left to do is put the pilot truck. The screw for the boiler is right here. So put the pilot truck on. And this little guy is a little bit tough to handle, but I can do it. I know I can, I know I can, I know I can. And then just tighten that in there. I wanted to be careful not to cross thread it. Happens to the best of us. And that's that. And now it's time to run some trains. Ah, look at that. I got excited. I forgot to pull my masking paper off from the coal load. That I don't mind being a little bit silly on camera. This kit never came with coal like that, so the previous owner added that. I leave the coal shiny because it's black diamonds. So okay, let's run some trains now. I tell you what, when I started this project, I wasn't expecting this. It is a good runner and quiet, and it feels strong. It was a very satisfying project to do. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you soon.